Good afternoon, everyone. We will give it about 10 seconds and then we will get underway. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, everyone, let's get started. My name is Jennifer McGuffin. I am the Chief Communications Officer for the law firm of Romanucci and Blandin in Chicago. We are grateful for your presence today, particularly as we wrap up April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I think what you will see and hear from the team and from our brave client will show the importance of these issues, particularly when traveling, which doesn't get discussed nearly as often as it should. Before I turn it over to Antonio Romanucci, who will introduce our team, I want to acknowledge our co-counsel, Attorney Jeffrey Nadrich of California, the Nadrich Law Corporation, attorneys Michael A. Kahn and Jeffrey Garfinkel of the law offices of Michael Kahn in California, and of course, our brave client, Barbara Morgan. Tony, I'll turn it over to you. Oh, before we do that, let me also just say, a recording of this will be available. We are recording, and it'll be on the YouTube page for Romanucci and Blandin. We will take questions from you at the end.
Thank you very much, Jen, and especially thank you very much to Barbara Morgan, who, as Jen said, is our courageous client, because without courage, we wouldn't be able to represent the people that we do. And without the courage that Barbara is showing, we aren't able to stop further incidents from happening. And the one that we're here to talk about today is one that is beyond egregious, because on April 25th of 2024, Barbara was a paying customer on an American Airlines flight. And it was a red-eye flight, one in which she was expected to be resting because that's what red-eye flights are for. And at that time, something heinous happened to her. And our trial team will be speaking about that. And I want to introduce those members of the trial team who will be discussing the complaint that has been filed and the allegations that surround what happened to Barbara. And we're hoping that this never does happen again, because we want to bring awareness. And we know that as lawyers that we have the responsibility to bring these issues forward and stop them from happening. And so I'd like to introduce the trial team of Daisy Ione, Patrick Driscoll, and Sarah Raish, and I will turn it over to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Good afternoon, everyone. American Airlines charges extra for safety. On April 25th, 2024, American Airlines placed our client Barbara Morgan next to a known predator. He was known to them because in 2023, another passenger had reported him. When Barbara got to her gate and asked to change seats so that she could sit next to her husband, American Airlines said no, not unless you pay nearly $100 more. American Airlines put a price tag on Barbara's safety. They knew who they had placed her next to. They knew there were open seats on that flight. They knew Abraham had a history of sexual assault, but they still put a price tag on her protection and restricted her ability to move. It was a conscious choice, and it was a choice designed to increase their profits. Profits first, passenger safety second. That's American Airlines. Again, thank you so much for being here as we announce the filing of this lawsuit against American Airlines. This lawsuit demands accountability from a global corporation that knew women like Barbara were in danger. But instead of protecting her, they placed her at risk and they left her defenseless, without her even knowing it. American Airlines assigned our client to a middle seat next to a man they already knew had a history of sexually assaulting other passengers. Other women had come forward before. And we know this because the passenger in that 2023 flight reported the incident mid-flight. American Airlines knew Abraham was dangerous, but they continued to let him fly without any restrictions. After Barbara was sexually assaulted, American Airlines ignored Barbara when she reported the assault. Barbara sent letters to top executives to notify them of her assault and to plead with them to do something so that this didn't happen to other women. American Airlines did nothing. And of course, it happened again. Eventually, the FBI got involved and stopped this man, but not after several women had been harmed. American Airlines failed those women, and it was a conscious choice. It was a business choice. Barbara's trip that day was supposed to be a celebration, an opportunity to be with her family, but instead, her flight turned into a nightmare. But Barbara's story is not rare. What's rare is a corporation that chooses to believe women, a corporation that acts on complaints of sexual assault, and a corporation that makes safety a real priority. This case isn't just about holding the individual accountable for what he did to Barbara. It's also about forcing American Airlines to look inwardly and to examine its own policy decisions. This lawsuit is about forcing American Airlines to take every report of sexual assault seriously. It's about demanding that American Airlines stops making women pay extra to protect themselves because safety is not a luxury, and bodily autonomy is not a luxury good. This lawsuit is not just about one assault. It's about a corporate culture that refuses to believe women when they report misconduct. Every day, it feels like women across America are in this perpetual battle against corporations. At hospitals, in the workplace, at airports, women are battling and they're fighting to be heard and to be believed. So when will corporations believe women? What will it take for corporations to take us seriously? I now would like to invite my colleague Sarah Reish to say a few words.
Thank you, Daisy. Upon landing, Barbara immediately went to the American Airlines gate agent. She described what happened and identified her assailant as he exited the gate. Instead of taking action to help Barbara or notifying the authorities, the gate agent blamed Barbara, asking why she didn't say something earlier. Barbara explained that she remained silent during the flight out of fear of retaliation from her assailant, fear of backlash from other passengers if the flight was diverted. Despite her clear report and request for help, the American Airlines gate agent told her that there was nothing they could do and directed her to file a complaint online. And Barbara did that. She reported her assault in writing the very same day, and she only received a generic response that someone would follow up. They never did. She repeatedly reported her assault, going so far as submitting a complaint directly to the American Airlines Director of Customer Relations, the Vice President of Reservations and Service Recovery, and the CEO. She expressed her concern over the lack of meaningful response, urging them to do something, warning that this predator would continue to abuse girls and women if the airline did not step in. The airline continued to do nothing. And when someone from American finally called Barbara, they again blamed her, the woman who was brave enough to report her assault. Because of their conduct, Barbara has experienced deep shame, frustration, anger, sadness, and fear. In March of 2025, the U.S. Attorney's Office filed criminal charges against Barbara's assailant because, just as she feared, he sexually assaulted another female passenger on American Airlines. The charges referenced his previous sexual assaults on flights, including Barbara's, and another one that took place a year beforehand. American Airlines has been aware for years that sexual assaults on overnight flights are becoming more and more prevalent, and they had every opportunity to take those threats seriously. Instead, they allowed him to become a serial predator under their watch and on their airplanes. And when Barbara reported her terrifying experience, they brushed her off and blamed her for their utter indifference to her safety. They turned a blind eye, leaving passengers vulnerable at 30,000 feet. This isn't just a failure of policy, it's a failure of basic responsibility. American Airlines must take immediate, decisive action to protect its passengers like Barbara Morgan. I'd like to now introduce Attorney Patrick Driscoll to run through the details of our complaint.
Thank you, Sarah. Today, national civil rights law firm Romanucci and Blandin and California counsel, the law offices of Michael A. Kahn and the Nadrich Law Corporation announced the filing of a lawsuit holding American Airlines and Cherian Abraham accountable for the harm they caused Barbara Morgan on April 25th, 2024 on Flight 2111 from San Francisco to Dallas-Fort Worth. This case is a moment of reckoning for American Airlines. Our team, on behalf of Barbara Morgan, filed this lawsuit to hold both American Airlines and Abraham accountable for the traumatic in-flight assault on Barbara Morgan. But this is bigger than one horrific event. This is about a company that has built a culture of denial, silence, and inaction when it comes to sexual violence on its aircraft. For too long, there's been abuse on the airline and silence in the boardroom. What this lawsuit makes clear is that American Airlines could have prevented this from happening, and they had a duty to. American Airlines is known as a common carrier under the law. They have a higher standard than other corporations due to the nature of their business. Under the law, American Airlines must use the highest and utmost care, vigilance, and diligence aimed at providing safe transportation to passengers. American Airlines didn't just fail to meet the highest standard, they failed to meet even the most basic one. As my colleague Daisy discussed, American Airlines knew Abraham had been reported for sexual misconduct on a prior flight. They knew he posed a danger, but instead of protecting passengers, they let him board again. And not only that, they knowingly separated Barbara from her husband and seated her next to Abraham on a long-haul red-eye flight. The exact kind of high-risk scenario the FBI has repeatedly warned the airlines about. This wasn't a policy failure. It was a policy design. American Airlines chose to monetize vulnerability by incentivizing a woman to pay to sit next to her husband for a sense of safety. American Airlines has made their policy clear. On American Airlines, they will not protect you for free. You must pay for your safety. But safety should not be a luxury item. When an airline prioritizes seat upgrades over safety, everyone is at risk. And this lawsuit seeks to hold American Airlines accountable for building a system that puts women at risk. This lawsuit isn't just about negligence. It's about profit-driven indifference. Indifference to safety, indifference to trauma, and indifference to women. American Airlines didn't drop the ball. They never picked it up. Barbara Morgan was not the first woman to be put in a position by American Airlines to be sexually abused on a flight, and she was not the last. That horrible truth is why this lawsuit is an indictment of American Airlines that demands institutional change. It is time for American Airlines to answer the bell. It is time for American Airlines to take real, measurable action to protect its passengers. And so, we are calling on American Airlines to immediately publish its internal data on reports of sexual assault and misconduct on board its flights. Report every complaint of sexual violence to law enforcement. End the practice of separating families unless they pay extra. Implement a no-fly policy for individuals credibly accused of sexual assault or misconduct on board, and to train all flight crew to monitor the cabin and intervene when necessary, and train all support staff in trauma-informed response and awareness. Make no mistake, this is a safety crisis. American Airlines has the resources, reach, and responsibility to lead by example. The spotlight is on you, American Airlines. You've ignored the warnings. You've ignored the survivors. What will it take for you to act? I'd like to now invite our client, Barbara Morgan, to say a few words.
Sorry, this is really difficult. On Wednesday, April 24th, I boarded a red-eye flight 211 American Airlines. I was visiting my son, who had just finished grad school and finished his military service. He graduated from Harvard Business School and was starting his first job in Dallas in the public sector. I sat in 28B the middle seat. Although the flight was not completely full, they seated me in the middle seat and away from my husband. I was sitting next to a passenger, a male, on the window, who I now know as Cherian Abraham. During the course of Flight 211, I was sexually assaulted by Cherian Abraham. It's hard to describe what it's like to have a stranger touch you. You don't know how to react because you don't think it's possible. I thought, or you think, that you would be strong, that you could fight back, but I didn't know what to do. I was frozen. But when it happens to you and a stranger fondles your breasts and your inner thigh and touches your vagina area, it was dark and crowded. I froze and my body went into shock. During the rest of the flight, I was distraught. It was dark. It was past midnight. People had masks on. They had earmuffs on. No one can hear me. And I felt that I was sitting in silence. When the plane finally landed, I unbuckled and rushed out. It was a narrow aisle, and I ran to the first person I could, an American Airlines agent at the front desk. And I told her, that man just assaulted me. He touched me and he violated me on the flight. And she told me that there's nothing they can do now that the plane has landed and he's out. And it was my responsibility while on the flight to stop him and to notify people. How could I lift my hands up? How could I trust that he isn't going to do something horrific to me? It was my responsibility. She told me to go to the website, go to AmericanAirlines.com and file a complaint. And so I was stunned and I watched him walk away, untouched. And I knew what happened. He got away with it. I was ashamed, angry, and so frustrated. I reported what happened because I believed American Airlines would take me seriously, but they blamed me. They made me feel like I was the problem. The shame stayed with me so long after the flight ended, and it hasn't stopped today. In the afternoon, on April 25th, 2024, the same day as the assault, I wrote a written report to American Airlines Customer Relations. I described the assault in detail, including the flight number, my seat number, the seat number of the person behind me, who is Cherian Abraham. American Airlines responded, informing me that there's a huge volume of complaints and there was a delay, and they would get back to me. After multiple attempts to talk to someone at American, finally on May 7th, Human Resources responded telling me that they would reach out to me in a timely manner, and they thanked me for flying American Airlines. Later, I would get a call from a man from American Airlines telling me that it was my responsibility while in the air to report Cherian Abraham, that I had that responsibility. And now it was his word against my word. I did ask him if the conversation was taped, and he said no. So I had no proof of what he was telling me. I did tell him also, you're shaming me and you're hurting me and you're making me feel worse. And he said that there was nothing that they can do. They could not take action. I felt defeated. I couldn't reach anyone, and I couldn't stop him or hold him accountable. American Airlines did nothing. To this day, I keep asking myself, why were they unfazed by this complaint? How did they not care about a sexual assault on their airline? Where's the urgency? Where's my protection? Why don't they care? I was just a number. I'm speaking because no woman, needs to feel unsafe on a flight. I'm sharing my story because I don't want other women to do this alone. I don't want any other women to feel discounted or ashamed for someone violating them when they're trapped in a seatbelt between two people. I'm filing this complaint because I have a daughter. You have a daughter. And I don't want any daughter to be assaulted on a plane. I'm doing this for all women. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. We are done with our official remarks and we will take questions. If you do have a question, please indicate so in the chat and we will identify you by name and give you a chance to unmute yourself and ask a question. Questions will only be taken by the attorneys. Our client Barbara will not be taking any direct questions. While we wait, I would like to ask Daisy if she or someone on the team would like to talk a bit more about the so whats and what nows. Patrick listed quite a number of them. What is the call to action? What would you like to see from American as an immediate response?
Sure. Patrick touched on some of these points, and we're asking these corporations, not just American Airlines, but other airlines as well, to take common sense approaches to protecting women. What are some of those things? Number one, as Patrick mentioned, allowing families to sit together. There's no reason that in a flight where there are open seats that families should not be able to stay together. Not charging for changing your seats, because in the airline industry that has become a big source of revenue, that you have to pay $70, $80, $90 to switch your seats, and that should not be allowed. So we're asking for that. We're asking for transparency, as Patrick mentioned. We don't know the data. We don't know how many complaints the airlines get on any given date. And Patrick can speak a little bit more about this, but we're flying blind here because the airlines refuse to share that information with the general public, and that should be common knowledge. So Patrick, why don't you share some of the research that you have found regarding this?
Thank you. And so I'm sure many of you are aware the media has reached out to the airlines numerous times about this problem, which has been well documented on airlines. Congress has put together a task force to look into sexual assault on board airlines. And the airlines have consistently refused to share their data with anybody. And so we're calling on American Airlines and the other airlines to share that data because people should know the dangers that they face when they fly. And in addition to that, there's an attitude that the airlines have exhibited in its unwillingness to allow or help their customers report sexual assaults that happen on board this flight. And if I can share my screen for a moment, Scott, we have found in our research there was a report done by a task force that the Department of Transportation put together to look into the problem of in-flight sexual misconduct. And as part of the report that the task force put together, they reached out to all major airlines that account for 95% of domestic air travel in the United States and asked them about their willingness to inform passengers on how to report incidents of in-flight sexual misconduct. And here are their answers. The majority of these airlines said that they were not willing to inform passengers of how to report incidents of in-flight sexual misconduct in the announcements that they give on board the aircraft, in their apps, their magazines, and seat back pocket information. The majority of those airlines wouldn't even consider doing anything to help the passengers learn how to report those occurrences. And so that's a large part of the reason that we have this call to action for transparency. And that's all I have.
Jen,
We do.
do we have any questions?
We do. We have a question from Dana Rebick, and if I could ask each of the reporters to please identify yourself and your outlet before you ask your question.
Yes. Hi, this is Dana Rebick. I'm from WGN. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I was hoping, I know you said Barbara wouldn't be taking any more questions, but if one of you wanted to speak to this on her behalf, or if you would let her answer this one, but I was just curious as to her response once she learned of this FBI investigation, because at the time when she reported, it seemed obviously her complaints were overlooked. And then to learn, not even about a year later, that he's been criminally charged for the same behavior, just the reaction to that news.
Sure. The reaction was one of shock. And when Barbara first reached out to our law firm and we were discussing this, and she mentioned this in her remarks, the whole reason why she had contacted American Airlines to report this incident at various times was because she was telling them, you need to do something or this is going to happen again. And when the FBI contacted her, she found out that the third victim was a 22-year-old girl. And as Barbara said in her message, she was outraged. She was outraged to learn that a younger girl had been sexually assaulted. And it is very hard for someone like Barbara, who already has a life and has stability in her life, to come forward. But it's very hard to imagine how this type of assault affects someone who's that young. And so Barbara, as she said in her message, she wants to make sure that this doesn't happen to other young girls, to other women, and that they don't walk this path alone. And so she was shaken by the news, but to learn about that and to learn that not only was there a victim before her, but even after she had gone to great lengths to approach the airlines and share this with them, that they continue to allow this guy to get on the flight without any restriction, and it happens to someone else. It's truly heartbreaking.
Thank you, Daisy. My understanding is that given the large number of participants, some people are having problems posting in the group chat and maybe getting an error message. So let's just buy a little bit more time here. If you are able, you can message me, Jennifer McGuffin, directly. And in the meantime, while we give you a chance to do that, I'll ask the team an additional question. Are airlines able to flag someone who they have concerns about flying? What should they have done in 2023 if this person hadn't had a conviction? Do you have some ideas or some suggestions on treatment of those types of flyers, the high-risk flyers?
Sarah, why don't you answer this one?
Yeah, thank you. We do believe that they have that ability. They have the ability to make a notation if a passenger is, for instance, a doctor and could provide medical help. They have the ability to have a notation if they have an allergy to peanuts. They have that ability, and if they want to claim that they don't, they need to make that ability so that they can know when passengers are a risk. And there are a lot of things that they could have done. They could have avoided it if for some reason they wanted to allow him to continue to travel, which of course we think they absolutely should not have. They could have made sure that he did not have a female passenger sitting next to him, that he was not concealed in a window seat, particularly at an overnight dark flight. They could have made sure that flight attendants and staff on the airline were actually monitoring him and making sure that he wasn't doing anything suspicious. They could have utilized an air marshal. There are so many things that they could have done, and they did literally nothing, and instead placed Barbara right next to him and placed this other young woman right next to him, and they both suffered the consequences because of American Airlines failures.
Thank you, Sarah. Not seeing any further chats, I'm going to turn it to Daisy to perhaps wrap things up with a forward-looking, what are next steps with this civil complaint? And then we will, no sooner said. Why don't you take that next question, Daisy, and talk a bit about next steps in the litigation?
Jen, I'm not able to see the other questions. I don't know if I'm not looking in the right spot.
That's okay. Let's talk about next steps, and then we'll see if we can identify the reporter who's interested in asking.
Sure. So the next steps, the litigation process has started. We have not received a response from American Airlines yet. We expect that they're going to be filing an appearance in court in the next few weeks, and then we will do what's known in the legal world as discovery. This is where we get to ask American Airlines to share a lot of documentary evidence with us, and they ask some questions of us as well. So we're going to be exchanging and engaging in that process. We hope that through the discovery process that we're going to be able to find out a lot more about what American Airlines knew, when they knew it, who they knew. And that's the process of litigation, to uncover all of these things that really should be made available to the public. And look, we want accountability, and accountability comes in different ways in a civil lawsuit. First, in a civil lawsuit, the only damages that we're allowed to ask for is money damages. But we also want policy changes. We want American Airlines to change the way that they do things. And I think everyone has had a frustrating experience with airlines and their restrictive policies and the way that they capitalize on passengers who rely on them to get to places. So we want that to change a little bit. We want that to change in order to protect women and to protect other vulnerable populations. We got to make sure that if we are paying these airlines exorbitant amounts of money to fly, that they keep us safe during those flights. That's a fair exchange. That's fair to request that of corporations when we fly and when we do business with them. So they want our business. They should do good by us as well as customers.
Thank you, Daisy. I do have a follow-up question from Dana Rebick from WGN asking about the scenario if this particular individual then stops flying American and just moves over to another airline. It seems there may be a suggestion for an FAA or for an airline industry solution. What are your thoughts?
Right. And so I think that's a great point. And the issue is that, are these airlines sharing information between each other? They should be, because if there are individuals who are known risks or that are putting women in danger, that's the type of information that airlines should be sharing. And so we are going to be looking into closing those loopholes that allow, sometimes in other settings as well, and in hospital settings, sometimes there's loopholes between the law because clinics that don't communicate with hospitals. And so it seems to be a ripe area to explore whether there are similar loopholes in between airlines, and can airlines share this type of information. At the very minimum, we want airlines to be sharing that information with the FBI and reporting them to the authorities so that they can at least keep track of what's going on. But much more needs to be done, and we're going to be looking into all of those issues and looking to see ways that we can not only represent Barbara in this individual claim, but to bring broader change through legislation. And so we're inviting legislators to partner with us, to reach out to us, because we want to make sure that this doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank you, Daisy. We do have a question. Eric Bushman from KRLD in Dallas. If you'd like to unmute and ask the group your question about the FBI.
Yes, thank you very much. Any one of the lawyers, I'd love to know if you have asked for help from the FBI to get more information on what they have uncovered regarding the incidents previous to this one, and if they can cooperate with you, or if they've said that no, they can't because they're doing, their own thing. And that's the end of my question. Thank you.
Sure. We're hoping to be able to collaborate with them because we did not have a lawsuit on file. We don't have any subpoena power, and we're limited in what we can do before a lawsuit is filed. Now that the lawsuit is filed, we're hoping that we can obtain some additional information from the FBI, and we hope that we can collaborate with them. Typically, in these types of cases, the criminal case and the criminal prosecution takes precedence. And so sometimes we have to wait a little bit before we can access their records and the information that they have. But we're hoping to be able to collaborate with them. Anything else, Sarah, Patrick, on that?
No.
Thank you, Daisy. I believe that that does it for us in terms of questions. Would you like to provide any type of summary statement before we conclude?
We just want to thank everyone for being here today, and we encourage every one of you as members of the media to ask these tough questions of the airlines, to question American Airlines. What are you doing about this? How are you solving this? And what types of transparency and policies are you putting in place to make sure that other women are safe on your flights? And so this lawsuit is just one avenue, and until lawyers and reporters and legislators put pressure on these global corporations to do better by consumers, nothing's going to change. So I encourage all of you here today to do your part and ask these tough questions of the airlines. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Should anyone have any further questions, you can reach me at the email press, PRESS, @rblaw.net. Thank you very much. Thank you, Barbara, most of all.